Now, housing projects being developed by both public and private entities currently in the country are still beyond the reach of Kenyans. To address this, various private developers have turned to what they call the Tenant Purchase Scheme, TPS concept, to provide an affordable avenue of ownership for Kenyans. This is basically a traditional lease agreement that also gives the tenant an option to purchase the rental property sometime after the beginning of the tenancy. Here to expand more on what this means for potential homeowners in Kenya is Chris Dirangu, who's the MD of Reside Properties. Many thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Looking at the housing deficit, we see sort of like a paradox, because on one end we see a lot of properties being developed right now, but on the other end it's actually very difficult for Kenyans to access. Why are we seeing this gap?
One of the the main reasons is because the disposable income for Kenyans is low. What you would call the money available to purchase homes. And that's why you see, because the banks have now been shy of lending to individual investors, the banks, other institutions have realized that there's a need to help homeowners acquire homes. And that is why you see other avenues are evolving, like the tenancy purchase, like the off-plan models and others. Because the mortgage rates in this country are very high. And when you tell people to pay thrice the value of their property in 25 years or 15 years, it becomes a pain even to the family. So that is why now you see these other avenues that are evolving.
Talking about other avenues that are evolving now, let's talk about this tenant purchase scheme. What exactly is this and how does it work?
It more or less works like a mortgage, only that you'll be paying part of the price of the house with your rent. All right? The rates are not as high as mortgage, they are favorable, and you're paying for the house with your rent. So if you, for instance, get a project that the period is 20 years, it means that within the 20 years, you'll be paying for your house as if you're paying rent, but you'll be paying for the value of the house. So at the end of the day, after the period that you've agreed with the developer, you'll own the house after you have paid your money for several years, but at a very negotiated and low interest rate.
Who's eligible for this?
Mostly, I would say everyone, but mostly we are targeting mostly the unemployed, business people, and the middle class that has largely been left out in the property ownership or property ownership schemes. Because you realize if you don't qualify to get a mortgage, say of 8 million from a bank, then where do you go? So you'll find that the tenancy purchase mostly will favor people who have joined cooperative societies, housing cooperative societies, and genuine SACCOs. Because now when it comes to cooperatives and SACCOs, someone needs to be very careful to do their due diligence well, to make sure that they're not losing their money. But you'll find that because the SACCOs have had savings for a period of time, they have lump sums that they can do a project and distribute the cost to be repaid or to be recouped within a period of a long period, like 20 years, for instance. So the eligible people are, I would advise people to join cooperative societies and SACCOs that are genuine. Because you realize an organization like NSSF SACCO, they do that. An organization like Safaricom Investment Cooperative, they do that. Because they have funds that are already there and ready to be used, and they can recoup for a long period of time.
Aside from this tenant purchase model or scheme, what other schemes are developers now looking towards to actually make housing more affordable for Kenyans?
Now, following the banks not giving loans or shy of giving loans, developers now have come up with policies or procedures like the famous off-plan model, where you buy your property from inception. When the company is doing a groundbreaking, they buy their property then at the most lowest prices, the affordable prices. Then they will be paying for their unit on a monthly basis within the period of the project. So say the project is taking 1.5 years, or let me say in months, say the project is taking 20 months. The investor will be able to pay a deposit, say 20%. Then the balance of the price will be distributed in 20 months. And the beauty of this is that the investor or the home buyer is able to buy their home at the most affordable price, because the developer is not charging him interest, the developer is not charging him a profit. Why? Indirectly, the client is the financier of the project. So when you buy your project off plan, it means the developer will not go to the bank to borrow. So you're the people who are financing the project. So the benefit you get is that you own your house or your home at the most affordable rates. Then you have a prolonged period of paying your cost. All right? Mm-hmm. So that is one of the major that is right now, even before the tenancy purchase becomes common, that is the project, that is the model that is common as we speak.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
And looking at some of these schemes that developers are now offering, how do you think this is going to cut down the housing deficit, especially since this is one of the major big four agenda for the government? What role would it play?
One of the things that I would thank the government for doing is we had recently, our president gave extended an arm to manufacturers of building materials for electricity to be on half rates. That is one of the things that is lowering housing cost. Secondly, when now developers like ourselves reside properties, we have several projects that we are doing at a go. So we are able to buy materials in bulk and enjoy economies of scale. So there are several factors that encompass the price that when you manage them well, you're able to give your houses at the best rates. Now, when the investor or the client is buying their houses early enough for off-plan, for instance in off-plan, actually they're able to get their houses at cost, which in most cases is 30% or actually even almost slightly above 50%, because you'll have some precautionary amount on cost, on the basic cost. So you'll find that a house worth 12 million in the market, you can buy it at 6.5, and that will be your price to the end.
Thank you very much for that. We've been speaking to Chris Dirango, who's the Managing Director of Reside Properties, and he's been speaking on the tenant purchase schemes, as well as the other schemes that developers are now looking into to ensure that Kenyans can actually afford to buy a home. Remember that this is one of the big four developmental agendas for the government, and so it's quite a crucial one. Let's take a look at